Welcome to another edition of Chomp Chat, a mental health conversation worth having. On this episode, we introduce you to Karoline Tuttle, a sophomore here at the University of Florida and a member of the Florida women's golf team. She joins us today to discuss how she was initially opposed to engaging in therapy to now being an advocate for utilizing therapy to improve your mental health. And, as always, Dr. Nicole Karcinski, the Director of Mental Health and Wellness at the University of Florida Athletic Department, joins the program. Now, episode number 4 of Chomp Chat.
Welcome into this episode of Chomp Chat, a mental health conversation worth having. I'm Dennis Black, Assistant Athletic Director for Creative Services here at the Athletic Department. And joining me today is Dr. Nicole Karcinski, the Director of Mental Health and Wellness here at the Athletic Department, and Karoline Tuttle, a sophomore on our women's golf team. Gators, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
First off, for our new listeners, Dr. Nicole, please kind of describe what your role is here at Florida and a little bit of your background.
Hello, nice to be back again. I am Nicole Karcinski, the Director of Mental Health here for UF Athletics. This is month 4 for me. I joined the Athletic Association in January. Prior to that, I was here at UF as one of the psychiatric providers at Student Health Psychiatry. I am a double Gator, and I'm excited to be here.
And Karoline, you were just named SEC Community Service Leader for the Athletic Department. And then just a little bit of your background. You were back-to-back Florida State Golf Association Junior Player of the Year 2 years in a row. And you're just finishing up your sophomore year here at Florida. Tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of how you became a Gator.
Yeah, like you said, I just finished up my sophomore year. I'm from Lake Mary, Florida, which is 15 minutes north of Orlando. Grew up a Gator fan. My dad went here. A little bit of a unique story. I committed here in 9th grade, so I've been a Gator for a long time and excited to be on here.
That's pretty unique. Kind of nice that you grew up a Gator fan and kind of had an opportunity to come here and play golf. So congratulations on being a Gator. So today we're here to talk about mental health, obviously. So to kind of get us kick-started here, Dr. Karcinski, how are things been going so far, kind of in the Mental Health Awareness Month that we are here in May?
It's been going really well. We have launched several initiatives this month and are looking forward to the continuance of spreading awareness of mental health as the year continues.
And we've had some really good content and discussions throughout the month that are on FloridaGators.com as well as our YouTube channel. But here today, Karoline, you're not alone in thinking that mental health wasn't for you, right? So I think we're here today to talk about your journey and how maybe you didn't think it was for you right away, but then you've had the opportunity to talk more about your mental health.
Yeah, freshman year coming in here, I didn't really know much about mental health or therapy or anything like that. Never really had anyone close to me go through therapy. Just didn't know anything about it, essentially. And spring of my freshman year, a few people suggested that I go try it out, see what happens. And I was pretty resistant to it. I was like, no, like, I've got it. Like, I'm fine. Like, I'm good. And then a few weeks later, they were like, hey, like, why don't you go try it out again? And I was like, I don't know, maybe. So I reached out early summer, still a little bit resistant, didn't really know what was going to happen, and tried it out. And I was like, wow, like this opened like kind of a whole new world. And I was like, like there might be something to this. So, and that kind of just sparked a really good relationship that was actually very beneficial.
We had Taylor Roberts on earlier, a teammate of yours here with the women's golf team. Have you had she's a big proponent of mental health awareness. How has it helped you, where golf is such a mental game to begin with, right? How have you seen your growth in how just talking about things has helped you?
Yeah, vulnerability was a huge part of it. Last year I was not very vulnerable, and like working with someone and having these conversations, I learned how to open up more. And I was like, like this is it. And yeah, Taylor's a really, really close friend of mine, and having those conversations with her and just getting ideas from her was really cool.
And Dr. Karcinski, we've talked in previous episodes about how the community continues to spread as mental health awareness is more open and talked about.
Yeah, I'm sort of curious from your perspective too, Karoline, like if there was parts of you when you were growing up or the experiences that you had in the golf environment that maybe led you down a path to think that seeking services was potentially going to hurt your game, or that if it meant you were soft, I don't like that word at all, but it's used in athletics a lot, or maybe that you were weak, and that may have contributed to your, I don't want to say resistance, but perhaps, hesitation in seeking services.
Yeah, I just truly did not know anything about it. And when somebody suggested it, I had this notion in my head was like, oh, like I don't want to be soft. Like I got everything under control. Like I can do it with the help of the people around me. And I was like, yeah, like I don't need to go be soft and do that. And yeah.
Yeah. So did you feel soft when she started talking?
A little bit. I was like, okay, like this is what it means to open up. This is what it means to be vulnerable, which definitely took weeks and months to get to. But I was like, to be able to trust someone like that and like with everything, it's like, wow, like, but.
And I think that's one thing we talk about a lot in athletics. Here at Florida, you have elite athletes in every sport. And growing up, you're told you're the best, told you're a really great player. And to maybe play through injuries, to be mentally tough. And I think as more student athletes and professionals talk about the mental health aspect of it, there has to be a vulnerability to it and a willingness to share. Would you guys kind of talk about that?
I think for us, the idea of being vulnerable is one that I liken in a kind of metaphor. And so when I talk to athletes about being comfortable with sharing their emotions, I will often say, where is it in your training or in your practice where you feel like your growth happens? And most of the time they'll say, gosh, it's like at the end of the practice, or it's at like where the pain threshold is, or I'm at my max heart rate and coach says, go harder. And so my response often is, and so at the end of that, do you ever regret it? Like, do you ever say, oh gosh, I went too hard, or I didn't make improvements in whatever activity coach is asking? And most of the time, like, no, that's actually where the growth is. And so that's oftentimes my response is like, let's go to that edge. Let's go to that emotional edge together. And we're going to look over it, and it's going to be scary, and this is going to feel really uncomfortable, and we're going to have potential feelings in our body, just like you would be at practice where you're like, I can't do this anymore. And that's where the growth is.
Right. And the thing for me was, I'm only going to get as much out of it as I put in. And that was a big thing I had in my head. I'm like, okay, like if I go in there and I'm just like basic information, then I'm only going to get basic back. And I was there to improve, and I know that I had a lot of room to grow, and like that's what I wanted to get out of it.
Where have you seen the biggest growth for you?
Ooh. Gosh. Definitely, well, between therapy and a lot of work in my faith, like I've found this sense of like peace and just a lot of growth in handling myself on the golf course, off the golf course, not rooting my identity in golf, rooting my identity in Christ. And that has been a big thing for me over this past year and a half. And that's been the ultimate game changer for me.
Dr. Karcinski, we've talked about this multiple times where it is important to realize that you're not just an athlete. Can you just expand on that, where that seems to be the game changer, where once student athletes don't identify solely as an athlete and outside of their sport, that's when the growth really shines?
Yeah, I think The more you and I have talked about this over the past couple of weeks, I've thought more about just the general like hesitancy or maybe even resistance of athletes to view themselves other than an athlete, because there is a fear that I've picked up on and that some have voiced, that if they pull away any inch of it, they're not going to be the best version of themselves as an athlete. And when you're here at a university that demands as much excellence and eliteness as possible, if you pull away, there's that risk of losing playing time or changing the way that they view themselves or the coach may view themselves. And so sometimes I feel like I have to almost sell hey, you are other than just this athlete, right? Like you have an identity as a child of somebody or a sibling, an academic, and then being able to have them explore outside of that or write down on a piece of paper, how else do you identify? It can be really scary for them.
Yeah, and to go kind of based off what she said, dealing with injury this whole year, like I couldn't have my identity in golf because I was unable to play for a while. And so to find things outside of golf to do with my roommates, with my friends, and just kind of expand my world a little bit was big for me.
And what would your advice be for those listening, maybe that are younger, up-and-coming athletes in any sport, to just give them some advice?
I would say use all the resources possible. There's a lot of things. Don't root your identity in just one thing, because eventually, like, it's going to end one day, or you're going to get burned out, whatever it may be. You can play golf forever or for your whole life, but you need to be well-rounded. You need to have a life outside, and whether that's faith or whatever your other hobbies are, it's very beneficial.
I would also say while you're in sport, really trying to optimize those days off. And sometimes athletes will be fearful that if they don't do something to engage on their day off, that they're not keeping up with their competition. And so I will oftentimes remind them that their competition may actually be really good at self-care. Their competition may be able to take care of themselves or be able to step away that could be really beneficial to the sport that they're not able to. And I don't oftentimes like to use that comparison, but it can be valuable to look at how else you're filling your time to make sure that you're touching on those multidimensional parts of your life that you don't always get to do throughout the rest of the week.
And Karoline, probably hard to believe that a year ago you would think about being on a show to talk about mental health. So how are you paying it forward with others?
Yeah, I did not think last year I would be doing this, but just trying to help those younger than me, have those conversations with them, and just share my story a little bit to them, and they can see how far I've grown and what I've done, and just to inspire them.
And once you do talk about it, do you just find others opening up to tell them or tell you their story?
I do, yeah. I want to be someone that they can trust and that I can be close to them and that they can open up and just help them in any way that they need.
And Dr. Karcinski, how is this kind of a success story? This is our overall goal, where you literally have a student athlete that's resistant at first and then can see now the benefits of talking about it and being open about mental health.
What was really appealing to me and when Karoline and I talked on the phone was just that, when she said, man, I really didn't want to do it when I started. And it's like I have like a poster child for myself to say, oh, someone will get up there and say, I don't want to do this. And then when I did it, it was really beneficial. So I was very smiley on the end of the phone when I heard her story, because I think it speaks to those things that we're really scared of or resistant to do is actually some of the things that we need to go straight forward and actually do ourselves.
Well, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you guys coming in today to talk about mental health, especially it is Mental Health Awareness Month here in May. Dr. Karcinski, thank you so much. And Karoline Tuttle, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks for joining today's Chomp Chat. If you or someone you know is struggling, help is available. If you are a UF student athlete, you can seek mental health services through UAA Mental Health and Wellness. For everyone else, you can find resources at psychologytoday.com or FindTreatment.gov.